Good morning, students. Here once again I come to you through this small video, and please take your book, page number 53. In the previous video, we were discussing about the wind and the air current. Wind and the air current. When it is wind and where it is air current, we know that. And in that we were discussing different types of wind, and in that different types of there are four types of wind. What are they? Permanent, that is known also the planetary. Next one is the periodic wind or the seasonal wind. The third one is the local wind or the local winds, and the fourth one is the variable local winds and the variables. So permanent, periodic, local and variable, these are the four types of wind. So wind blowing. Yesterday we were discussing the permanent wind, that is permanent wind, the wind that prevails in one place, whatever wind it is prevailing that region, particular wind, they blow all over the planet. That is wind that is present, that is called prevailing in wind in a particular place, that is known as permanent wind. And in that permanent wind there are another three types of winds. Permanent winds have three types. Number one is trade wind. Second one is the water lice, and the third one is the polar wind. The trade wind. What is this trade wind? Why it is known as trade? Winds are sold and bought. No, trade wind. It helps in trade. Okay, how? We'll discuss. These winds blow towards the equatorial low pressure belt. Equatorial low pressure belt. Why it is low? 5 to 30 degree in both hemisphere. 5 degree from equatorial towards the equatorial, that means from the tropic to the equatorial, from 5 to 30 degree in both the hemispheres. From the subtropical pressure belt, where from subtropical, that is tropical area, to the equatorial region, they are called the northeast trade wind in the northern hemisphere and southeast trade wind in the southern hemisphere. When they are in the southern hemisphere, they are called southeast trade wind and northeast trade wind. In the north it is northeast, in the south it is southeast trade wind. These winds are steady, regular and blow in the same direction. Trade winds are onshore on the eastern side of the continent and offshore on the western coast margin. On the western margin it is offshore. What is onshore and offshore? Offshore means away from the shore, and onshore, that means from the sea to the land. Here it is land to the sea, offshore. That is the meaning. The hot deserts are thus located on the western margin and continent in the tropical belt. Western margin of the continents in the tropical belt. There are desert areas, Sahara like. Okay. Near, just close to the Sahara, there is a ocean. And then immediately that the desert begins. Why? Because of this hot. The deserts are thus located on the western margin of the continents in the tropical belt. It is there in the north. And so, what is this trade wind? Now, I must tell you what is this trade wind. Why this wind is known as trade wind. Trade wind, why? Because trade means what? Buying and selling. So, there is a permanent also. Remember this word permanent. So, these winds were blowing permanently from one direction to the other side. from one direction, constantly blowing from one direction to the other. And so it was helping. Earlier the boats and ships had no engine. They were on sail. Sail means the big clothes tied on top of the boats and the ships. You make the sail today. So those, they were with the current of the wind, they were with the pressure, wind pressure, they were moving. That's why it is known as. And so they were carrying a lot of goods from one country to the other country. They were going, and so this was known as the trade. That's why it is known as the trade wind. Okay, that's why it is known as trade wind. Next one is the westerlies. What is this westerlies? Westerlies, these winds are active within 30 to 65 north and south of the equator. North and south of the equator. This means that they blow from the subtropical high pressure belt to the subpolar low pressure belt in the northern and southern hemisphere. Due to their deflection, they become the southwesterlies. They become the southwesterlies in the northern hemisphere and northwesterlies in the southern hemisphere. Okay, and so westerlies are these are in the west. The westerlies are not so regular or steady. They are not regular or steady. They vary. In the northern hemisphere, however, they are steadier and stronger in the southern hemisphere because they face minimum land interference. North it is not regular. In south it is quite regular. The sailors call them the brave west wind. Brave west wind, or depending on the latitudes. Boring 40s, then furious 50s, and screaming 60s. All these are the sailors, they have named it. The waterlice brings rain on the western margin of the continent in the temperate belt. That's why these are they are not regular in the north and the regular in the southern hemisphere. So this is around 30 to 65 north and south of equator, north and south of the equator. Okay. Third one, polar winds. In the northern hemisphere, there are these are called the northeast polar winds and southeast polar wind, because in the south it is southeast, in the north it is northwest. Winds in the southern hemisphere, therefore, since they blow from east, and so they are also called the polar easterlies. Polar easterlies, like westerlies, here is easterlies. These winds blow from the polar high pressure area to the subpolar low pressure belt. Since they move from areas of low pressure temperature to the areas with the comparatively high temperature list. So they cannot absorb water vapor. And are not rain bearing. So they cannot absorb water vapor because they are dry. And so they don't carry moisture in the moisture. So polar belt. Okay, that is what is it. Next one. Next point of our discussion is the periodic winds. Periodic winds. What is that? Time to time. It's not permanent. First one was the permanent. Now it is periodic. As the name suggests, these winds are characterized by several what called reversal in wind direction, which may be seasonal or daily. Number one point is the land and the sea, land breeze and sea breeze. These are experienced in the coastal area. The solar energy heats up the land very rapidly. The air in contact with the hot surface absorbs heat, ascends and creates an area of low pressure. That we have seen the previous discussion also. Low pressure, high pressure. There is nothing much here. The sea takes a longer time to heat. We know earlier also we have discussed to experience the high pressure. When hot air rises above the land, cool sea breeze takes its place. Okay. When the sun sets, the land cools down faster while the water keeps longer time to cool down. So high pressure is created over the land since the water over the sea is warm. The air above the sea gets heated and rises. Now the cool cool land breeze blows out towards the sea. This is called the land breeze. So land breeze and sea breeze. Okay. So children, please read these 3 pages and try to understand. Ask if you don't understand. Okay. Stay healthy. Stay safe.